Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're looking at 5 facts about feral children.
People's first question is this a true story? Nobody has exactly the same story, but everybody has the same theme.
For this list, we're looking at what we know about children who grow up in isolation from human contact, some of them raised by wild animals. Did you ever imagine being raised by wolves or gorillas or some other animal as a kid? Tell us in the comments. Number 5. They're rare, and we know little about their lives in the wild. The feral child is a common trope in works of fiction. Edgar Rice Burroughs' Tarzan, Rudyard Kipling's Mowgli, François Truffaut's L'Enfant Sauvage, Jungle Boy from Gilligan's Island, the appropriately named Feral Kid from Mad Max 2. We could go on all day. While fictional realms are seemingly overflowing with feral children, in reality, they are few and far between.
They are the children who go through extraordinary circumstances, which no one could naturally create.
Of the reported cases, many have been hoaxes. Others are simply too poorly documented to verify. As a result, genuine feral children are extremely rare.
Real-life examples of children raised by animals do exist.
When people do find one, gaining insight into their experience often proves incredibly challenging, if not impossible. Due to their difficulty learning language, they rarely develop the ability to tell us about their experiences. To simply observe them without intervening to help would be unethical. So, from the moment of their rescue, their time in isolation often largely becomes a mystery. Number 4. They can grow up under various circumstances. In popular media, feral children are always raised by animals.
No man cub was ever happier. And yet, I knew that someday he would have to go back to his own kind.
But other, often darker origin stories do exist. Some feral children, like John of Liège, simply survive on their own. After fleeing soldiers in the early 1600s at the age of 5, he allegedly lived on roots and berries for 16 years. Most upsetting are stories of feral children who were victims of intentional neglect, like Danielle Crockett, who was rescued from squalor in Plant City, Florida.
Developmentally, she was anywhere between 6 months to maybe 18 to 24 months.
She didn't like walking and she loved being carried.
Jeannie, the victim of the most famous such case, spent most of her first 13 years of life locked away by her father.
In her darkened room, she had led a life of near total isolation. Even close neighbors were completely unaware of her presence.
When freed, she was severely malnourished and underdeveloped. Her command over language never developed beyond simple sentences. According to a private investigator, she now resides in an assisted living facility. Number 3. When raised by animals, they take on animal behavior. So what about the real-life feral children who are raised by animals?
Will a child raised in the wild become a man or a beast? Will a boy living with wolves become wolf-like? Or is he hardwired to be human? Are we essentially the product of nature or nurture?
There are accounts of feral children being found in the company of monkeys, wolves, dogs, sheep, birds, and other animals. Sadly, such upbringings offer little in terms of comfort or care. In reality, feral children raised by animals tend to be malnourished and to suffer permanent developmental delays. We're not calling wolves bad parents, just ill-equipped to raise humans. What animals can give to human wards, however, are mannerisms and behaviors. A Ukrainian girl, Oksana Malaya, was found living in a kennel with dogs. She crawled on all fours, bared her teeth, and barked.
She had very little human contact, and when finally discovered, it was obvious there'd been catastrophic consequences for Oksana's development.
Fijian Sujit Kumar, aka the Chicken Boy, was locked in a coop after the death of his parents.
We believe he was put there because his parents thought he had an evil spirit in him, because the family was completely dysfunctional.
As a result of this environment, he reportedly pecked at his food and held his arms like a chicken. Number 2. You can take the kid out of the wild, but not the wild out of the kid.
She was more like a little dog than a human child. First of all, she couldn't speak, or she could hardly speak. And actually the purpose of speaking, well, she didn't think it was necessary to speak at all.
When feral children are rescued, a long and grueling rehabilitation process begins. But depending on how long they spent in isolation or amongst animals, there are limits as to how much conditioning can be undone.
Oksana Malaya. It says that she's very much dog-like, that she used to move on all fours, and if she was scared, she'd attack and bite, that she didn't know how to cry, and when hurt, she whined.
Oksana Malaya is considered a real success story. Since being found, she has developed language skills and adapted to modern life in many ways. But, as pointed out in an article by The Telegraph, she can still revert to dog-like behavior at will, and her speech and gait bear the marks of her upbringing.
When I feel lonely, I find myself doing anything. I crawl on all fours. This is how lonely I am. Because I have nobody. I spend my time with dogs.
In a historical example, Dina Sanachar, the famous wolf boy of India, maintained certain wolf-like qualities until his death, including a love of raw meat. He was allegedly rescued at the age of 6. It would appear that your formative first few years truly shape your life. Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into Settings and switch on your notifications. Number 1. The key to nature versus nurture?
If a baby were left alone in the woods, how would it manage to survive?
While ingrained animal behaviors are certainly interesting, that which feral children don't learn may prove even more telling. It seems certain human behaviors and skill sets need to be learned young or not at all.
Happens if a child is going to survive, then he probably is older, he finds some way of surviving for himself. And because of that, he naturally becomes wild. He's got to steal. He's got to kill if necessary.
Feral children have helped us to understand just how fleeting this window can be, especially when it comes to language acquisition and social skills. When we factor the developmental limitations of feral children into the age-old debate of nature versus nurture, the importance of nurturing a child becomes undeniable. We're just beginning to scratch the surface of what feral children can teach us, but those aspects of so-called human nature that feral children don't acquire in isolation could provide invaluable insight into the significance of early childhood socialization.
The earlier children are identified and something can be done about it, even if it's just stabilizing their environment, the better it is for those children.
Did you enjoy this video? Check out these other clips from WatchMojo and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.